Hello everyone, this is POW. In this update, we're going to be talking about a polar vortex split with a snowstorm and some severe weather as things start to look bumpy in the week ahead. So if you're new to the channel, click the subscribe button and notification bell to get all my daily updates to keep you ahead of the storm. Good morning everyone, happy Saturday. Thanks for following out there. I do my best on a daily basis to break the weather down and bring you the most accurate product available so you can prepare and plan ahead. So I appreciate all you guys following out there and watching on a daily basis. So let's delve into the details on this video for this morning. And what we're looking at is the satellite picture, and it's pretty mild for December standards. We do have some snow breaking out into portions of Montana and North Dakota where they've got some winter weather advisories and winter storm warnings out there. We got sporadic showers and some isolated thunderstorms in and around the Dallas area this morning, as well as into Oklahoma. But you can see all the mild temperatures, 68 degrees in Houston. 50 in Oklahoma. So that is definitely mild weather for December standards. So if we take a look at the overall hazard map this morning, you can see our developing snowstorm to the north where we've got winter weather advisories in portions of Montana, as well as a winter storm watch and winter storm warnings in North Dakota, as well as Minnesota. And it's going to be a very windy week. They've already got high wind watches and warnings out into portions of Montana, as well as South Dakota into Wyoming. But then down to the south where things are starting to turn around too, or a lot more, some moisture is going to be coming back in the picture. We're starting to see some fog, and we've seen fog as the last couple of days. We still got some fog advisories in place for parts of the southeast this morning. So let's take a look at the overall map as far as what's going to happen for today for your Saturday. You can see the snow line to the north, and some of this could be heavy at times in portions of North Dakota. That'll spring some snow into Minnesota, as well as northern parts of Wisconsin here and northern parts of Michigan. Down to the south side, we do have a cold front, but there's not much cold air with this particular front. It's got some scattered showers like you're seeing this morning in and around just east of Dallas, going into East Texas, portions of Arkansas, Mississippi, and Alabama. But your snow lines well to the north in upstate New York, into Vermont, New Hampshire, going into Maine. And then, of course, you've got those rains, the atmospheric river rains in the Pacific Northwest. So let's take a look at Sunday. We do have a little bit stronger front that's going to be coming through. That's going to be pushing through Dallas tonight into the overnight hours. Could be some stronger storms. Some of these could be severe as we turn into East Texas. And then there's our snowstorm up to the north into Montana, going into North Dakota as it gets into upper portions of Wisconsin and Michigan around the Great Lakes here. We could be seeing some heavier snows start to break out, and just kind of a mixed bag a little bit further south. And some of these where you're seeing that warm front kind of clash with that cold front, we could be looking at some severe weather as we get into the day on your Sunday, mainly basically east of Dallas-Fort Worth. But if you live anywhere from Houston to East Texas, going into Little Rock, Arkansas, Springfield, Missouri, all these areas are under a marginal risk for severe weather. So sometimes some of these isolated storms can get turned severe with some 60-mile-per-hour winds and some larger hail at times. But you can still see some rain, maybe even not severe weather, but anywhere from Corpus all the way to Milwaukee to Chicago, down far south is Jackson. You're still going to be in that kind of the line of fire along that boundary line where you could see some isolated showers and a little bit stronger thunderstorm, just not severe. So as we transition into your Monday morning, we still got that snowstorm happening to the north where that cold front lies, and back behind it, we've got some colder air to talk about with some cold shots coming in. But really, since we've been so hot, it's always just really going to be dropping the temperatures closer to average, which you normally would be this time of year, as we do have some snow sneaking back in the picture, and some heavier snows are going to be taking place in Idaho, into Montana, going into Wyoming, and those will filter into western parts of Colorado as well. And that's for your day on Monday, with some showers and Isolated storm or two along the East Coast here into Virginia, going into Philly and New York City, as well as Boston into the Massachusetts area. So definitely be on the lookout for that. So yeah, but down to the south along that boundary, yeah, on your day getting into Monday, some of those storms into Houston, going into Shreveport, as well as Pasadena, getting into Beaumont, as well as College Station area. Yeah, some of those could be on the stronger side, if not severe side. So definitely be on the lookout because things start to get a little bit bumpy in those regions. But you could still see some showers from basically Brownsville, all the way up into Atlanta. That'll be on the day on your Monday. So, but with that cold front coming in on the backside, you can see the high temperatures by the time we get into Monday, December the 6th, and it starts to cool down. It hit 81 degrees the other day in Dallas Fort Worth. So now we're talking a high of 56. So that's a 25-degree drop. What you've seen as late, as we start to see pulses of cold starting to come down from the north, getting into our northern parts with some single-digit temperatures, and those are high temperatures on your day on Monday. So, but Tuesday we have transition day. We're starting to see some mechanisms that's happening in the upper atmosphere. This is in the stratosphere, so we're talking way up there, 30 to 50 miles up in the stratosphere. But this is definitely an indication of a polar vortex split. Now, we're watching, it has been strong as of late, but it definitely appears it's going to have a piece of it, kind of a polar lobe, break off and start to head south. Now, again, this is in the stratosphere. You're talking 30 or 50 miles up, and it could take several weeks to put some of this colder air mass down into the United States and start mixing in. So that is something to be on the lookout for, as we get into, say, that third week of December, of a little bit more colder, more sustainable cold coming back in the picture. But between now and then, it gets hot, it gets cold, it gets hot, and it's cold. We got a lot of moving parts because what we're looking at here is this is your first initial blast of cold air coming up on Tuesday, right? So we've got that first initial blast. There are indications we've got some definitely colder air entering the picture, sneaking south. This is not part of the polar vortex, but this is just part of the building of colder air into Alaska as well as Canada. Some of that will start to break off in peace and pull it further south and get into with that snowstorm coming up for that Saturday, Sunday, Monday timeframe, like I showed you. So on the back side of that, there's a pretty good blast of cold air, but it doesn't appear it's going to last a very long. So what we're working with here's the MJO, which is your man-in-Julie oscillation, and so we've been following this. And this is what the particular phases look like. We've been in phase 6, and look what phase 6 looks like. There's no question we've been plenty warm. And so this is where we were in December the 2nd. But as we get into the 7th time frame, we actually transfer into phase 7. And that's the indication of some of that colder air starting to sneak into the picture. The problem, what's going to happen over the next week or two, is we're slowly switching back into phase 6. So we're going to get cold. We see some colder air entering the picture, but then it switches back and goes into phase 6 by the time we get into that December 17th time frame. So for the next 10 days or so, 10 or 14 days, we're going to see wild swings in temperatures, and I'll show you this, and that's going to bring some snowstorms, but it's also going to bring some severe weather as well. But there's definitely indications as we get into that third week of December, and then to say that December 20th time frame, it starts to go solidly in phase 7 here. And you can definitely see that in phase 7, that's a colder phase. And the further away it gets from, say, what they call the center or the null phase, the more amplified it is, or more the stronger it is. So essentially, so it definitely appears as we get into that third week of December and going towards Christmas, especially by New Year's, we get deep into phase 7, and if not going to phase 8 by the time we get into your New Year's time frame. And so that is definitely a cold phase. And then once we get into January, if it does indicate it goes into phase 8, then that would be definitely a colder phase. as well. And then the next one would be phase 1 and phase 2. So we definitely appear after about December 20th, if things start, keep looking like they're looking, that we could be a little bit more colder phases, not just that, but more sustained cold and not just these quick hits that we've been seeing over the last couple of weeks and what we're going to be seeing for the next 2 weeks as well. So hopefully this all, comes, and then it looks like it, by the 3rd week of December, that's something that we're keeping an eye on for the longer term, that we have a little bit more sustainable cold entering back into the picture towards your Christmas and your New Year's time frame. So between now and then, we're going to be seeing big swings in temperatures. So here's the setup by Tuesday going into Wednesday with our initial snowstorm to the north. So we got more snow, and as the colder air drains, a little bit colder air starts draining a little bit further south, it brings the snow line a little bit further south. So that'll bring the snow, some snow starting to enter the picture in Chicago and northern parts of Indiana, as we're starting to see some colder air starting to enter the picture into our western areas as well eventually. But there's that initial blast of cold air. It starts to modify. So it's only like a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday type of event. Because a lot of the colder air, it's just a lot of quick hits. So there's big temperature swings this week and the week ahead. So the snow line is going to be well to the north, but we are going to be seeing it creeping down the deeper we get into next week and going into next weekend. So here's the setup by Thursday, December the 9th. We've got that snow line to the north of some snow starting to break out in northern parts of Nevada, going into northern parts of Utah here. It's all rain to the south side, and then more snow possibly entering the picture in Iowa, going into portions of Wisconsin again, into places in northern Illinois as well. And there's your setup by Friday, December the 10th. We've got more snow entering the picture, going into Colorado. I think Denver finally gets in the action of some snow flying in that region by the time we get into Friday and then Saturday type time frame. But there's your snow line to the north, and down to the south, we're going to be starting to look for some severe weather in that region, because what we're looking at is by the time we get into that Friday time frame, we've got a huge trough that's going to be digging into our western areas. That's going to bring our western areas much colder, and then all that air, that warm air, filters all the way into the south and the southeast and then the east coast. So we're going to be seeing a big swing in temperatures, with well above average temperatures out east, and then well below average temperatures out west, with that developing diving trough. So by the time that we get into that Saturday time frame, things could start getting nasty as far as the severe weather threat goes. And but it's a pretty big trough, and it looks to possibly come in a little bit negative, and it's going to bring some of that colder air. So the lower this is going to be able to dig, it's going to bring the snow line a lot further south. So you're probably talking about severe weather out ahead of it, and then some snow breaking out on the backside. Because look at some of the temperature anomalies by the time we get into Saturday, guys. I mean, it rapidly warms up, and this is almost scary looking for December the 11th time frame, of those well above average temperature anomalies that at 20 and 30 degrees above average, with the diving trough come in the picture, with a western trough. That's going to bring the colder conditions, the snow out west. But then where that clash is, yes, things could start getting really bumpy by next weekend for severe weather. And I'm definitely concerned for parts of the deep south and the southeast. Things could start getting nasty, possibly on the tornado front, as well as some larger hail with the developing diving trough coming in. So we'll have to see how all this plays out. But I'm definitely looking, pretty concerned right now with this particular setup that is on the table for the parts of the deep south. So yes, there's the satellite picture as we get into Saturday, December the 11th, where that trough really starts to dig in. Yeah, it's not out of the question. The further it's able to dig further south, we could be looking at some snow starting to break out, some isolated, light snow breaking out in the Texas Panhandle, portions of Oklahoma, portions of Kansas, getting into Iowa, and then in Missouri. But then there's going to be a sharp gradient on the south side and the southeast side, where you're going to be in that warm sector. And where you're in that warm sector, you're going to be getting severe weather. So it's not even out of the question. You could be getting some severe weather, and then it ends with snow on the backside. So it could be a pretty wild weekend ahead for your upcoming weekend. So because there's that developing trough coming in by Sunday, December the 12th. It rapidly digs down, and the southeast is definitely going to be under the gun for some severe weather by the time we get into Sunday, with some snow breaking out into the north. But look at all the high that is your morning temperatures for December the 12th, guys. I mean, that is some serious warmth coming, as we're going to be seeing that transition again, cold to warm, and then if not almost hot, because some of these areas by the time we get into that December the 12th timeframe, these are low temperatures. We're talking near 70 degrees in parts of Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, getting into Virginia. I mean, even portions of 60s filtering into portions of Pennsylvania here. So I don't need to tell you, that is plenty warmth. But on the backside, much colder air, probably your first freeze in the Dallas-Fort Worth area officially at the airport. So I'm definitely be looking out for that. And then, yeah, there's some of your snow where it's going to be definitely cold enough on the backside and the portions of Oklahoma and the Missouri. And of course, further north you go, just almost single digits, and if not below zero, and to portions of Dakotas and to Minnesota. But there it is. I mean, there's the particular setup. Of course, this will change over the next week, but yeah, it's going to be a sharp gradient of much warmer air to the south and much colder air to the north. And where we see that clash, we could be looking at some heavier snows and heavier storms by the time we get into the Sunday. So the weekend ahead looks pretty bumpy for sure, especially the further south you live in the deep south. And it's going to be a windy week as well, with that storm system coming in, and then of course the trough coming in as we get into late Friday, going into Saturday, traversing across on Sunday. These are some of the wind gusts that's going to be happening over the next 7 to 8 days. So it's going to be really windy out there, and some of those winds could be gusting at upwards to 60, if not 70 miles an hour at times, especially in those stronger storms. So definitely be on the lookout for a windy week ahead for sure. But there's the snow line. As the snow drops a little bit further south, as we get in some of the colder air into our western areas, we could be looking at some heavier snow starting to fly in portions of the Pacific Northwest, getting all the way down into portions of Utah, going into Colorado as well. And depends on how low that trough is going to get. It's going to be a sharp gradient of some snow starting to break out into portions of portions of the Texas Panhandle, possibly get into Oklahoma, but definitely the further north you get into, it's going to be all snow into portions of Missouri, get into Illinois, and we could be obviously looking at some heavier snows with a combination of all these systems into Wisconsin, into Michigan as well. And then there's your snow for the portions of the mid-Atlantic states as well as the Northeast. Here's the blend of all the models. So it takes out the snow into the Texas Panhandle and Oklahoma. That's not as certain as you get further to the north. But yeah, a pretty good snowstorm, and the most widespread snowstorm for next week that's going to be on the table, as you've seen of late. And that's not saying much, because you really haven't, a good chunk of the country really hasn't seen much snow. So there's definitely going to be a lot of areas next week seeing their first snowfall of the season as that colder air starts to drain a little bit further south. But there's the heavier rains. I mean, yeah, some of these where those stronger storms could set up, you could be looking at some flooding rains getting into portions of the southeast, going into portions of say Tennessee, going into Kentucky. And some of this will be, obviously in the form of snow, the further north you get into Illinois and Indiana, but there's a lot of precipitation with it. But more importantly, some rains are going to be filtering in with that trough coming in and with that diving trough coming in off the west coast. Yeah, some rains are going to be coming back in the picture in California, into Nevada, into Utah, and especially going into Arizona, into New Mexico, where they desperately need the rain. They need the rain in Colorado too. So if it falls in snow or rain, they'll take anything they get because it's bone dry in those regions out there. So, hey, I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video. Definitely leave your comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel to catch the latest update where I protect you before and after the storm.